What's up, my Shuggies? Ashley here, and welcome to Ashley K Talks. In today's podcast, I have a special guest that I am so excited to introduce you to. She is Desiree from Simply Sun Signs, and she is the creative person behind that beautiful Instagram page, as well as all of that amazing horoscope loungewear you have seen me rocking. So today's podcast is going to be all about horoscopes, love, signs, details. I personally don't know a ton about horoscopes, so I was super excited to bring this podcast to you guys. So if you were interested in this podcast, then just keep watching. All right, you guys, so we are here with Desiree with Simply Sun Signs, and we are going to start out with a few questions that I preemptively wrote down just because if you are not familiar with horoscopes, there are so many different layers to them. I only know that I'm a Gemini and the basic traits of them, and that is pretty much it. So you are going to enlighten us on all the horoscopes, the love signs, the compatibility, all of that good stuff. So, my first question is, how did this originate for you? I know you've always been into horoscopes. You had your book and all of that stuff, I remember.
Yeah, so I've been interested in it since I was a kid. I think, when we had, this is going to age us a little bit, but when we had when we had dial-up internet, and and you would get like the Yahoo or like that homepage would always have like the horoscope on there. So
Yeah.
it was like the first thing I always saw, I always read it, and I was like, oh, this really resonates. This like feels right. This makes sense to me. And then I started kind of looking at books, and then it just became like an addiction. I think like horoscopes are like a gateway drug to the rest of it. And
Uh-huh.
then you get into like the synastry and the compatibility. Um, and then, I knew a lot about it. And then my friends all knew that I was into it. So when I was at my dating age, they'd be like, Desiree, what am I like with this sign? And then, I'd tell them, and my friends were like, you should totally write about this, or whatever. Podcasts weren't like a thing back then.
Right. It was a
So
it was a
I'm going
blog,
to keep
right?
aging us. Podcasts weren't a thing when we were dating, when I was dating. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, but blogging was massive at that time.
Yep.
So I started a blog, and I started writing just the synastry, just between like your sun sign, right? So, um, yeah, so you're a Gemini, your husband is a Taurus. So I have like a post on that specifically for, I also do gender too, which is also kind of outdated, but I'm starting to kind of update that as well. And been doing some like same sex signs and things like that. So to answer your question, it really kind of just happened naturally. I don't think that there was like one moment in time where it was like it took off. It's just always been like a natural interest for me. So
Yeah. And what
yeah.
is like the generic, other than just like you're born in June, so you're a Gemini and these are your traits? Like, what are the different levels of it? Like the day you're
Yeah.
born, the time you're born, the alignment of the moon, whatever.
Yeah. So right now it's actually so fascinating to me how astrology has like taken off.
Mhm.
Like it's like all of a sudden very mainstream, very cool. When I was writing about it, I started my website about 12 years ago, 11 years ago. Like no one was writing about it. It was just not something that was mainstream. So now your big three is what they call it. So you have your sun, your moon, and your rising sign. So your sun sign is where the sun was in the sky at the time you were born. Your moon sign is obviously where the moon was. And then your rising is simply, we call it ascendant. It's your ascendant. So it was where, if you're looking at like a wheel or like your birth chart, so the ascendant, it's where the horizon was at the time you were born.
Got it.
So when you have those three, you really do get a good feel for what that person is like. Now, there are obviously other planets in there, but those other planets, well, depending on what, but they're slower moving. So whenever you hear somebody say, hey, what's your big three? So you have a Gemini sun, you have a Leo moon, and a Virgo rising. So that's what you would tell someone. And if you know the general characteristics of each of those signs,
Mhm.
then people could get somewhat of a little bit of a feel for you.
Okay.
Right. So, yeah, so that's kind of just like a little in a nutshell. Like if you just want to start out with like the basics, that's where I would start.
Okay.
Your sun really encompasses who you are as a person or your core. Your rising is like how you come off to other people. And then your moon is your emotions.
Okay, so I'm curious how I come off to other people.
So right away, like looking at your chart, the first thing or how you come off to people is your rising sign. So seeing that you have a rising in Virgo means that's like your initial impression on people. So Virgos are very famous for resting face, right? They are but they're
Definitely agree
also
with that one.
they're perfectionists. They are very like I wouldn't say that right away they're very like inviting, like they're not inviting. They are a mutable earth sign. Mutable being means that they're like really good at communicating, not afraid to talk, but they're also very analytical. So I would say, if you were to ask maybe like general stereotypes of Virgos, they're hard to get to know.
Guarded,
They're
yeah.
hard to get to know. Yeah, they're guarded. Yeah, that's safe. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
The third one.
Third one. So your moon sign is your emotions. So how you process emotions. It's also one fun fact is it's also how you experience your mother as well. So that's kind of something fun to think about. I don't know what sign your mother is, but sometimes the moon will have something to do with your mom where you're like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it's your emotions, it's how your emotions are filtered. So when you think of the sign of Leo, I mean, Leo is like a big, bold personality, passionate. So, when you have a moon in Leo, it's enthusiastic. You express your emotions mostly in a positive way. But there is a sense of like wanting things immediately with a Leo moon. That's like queen energy, right? I mean, they're like the queens and the kings of the zodiac. So people with Leo moons though are known to achieve like huge things in their lifetime. If I'm not mistaken, I'm almost sure that Beyonce has like a Leo moon, if that helps you. She's a Virgo girl. she's a Virgo sun with a Leo moon, if I'm not mistaken. It's either a Leo moon or a Leo rising. She's got one of the two, but she's got that Virgo Leo combination in her big three. So that just gives you an idea. She's perfect. She's big. You know what I mean? She's queen.
I'll take it. Is for the emotional part, would you say that they're more emotional? Because I feel like that's the one thing I've had to really like focus on is like controlling my emotions. As I've, of course, when I was younger, it was like felt impossible, but now.
Yeah, well, and then so one other thing you always have to take into consideration is the house that it's in. So when you're looking at somebody's chart, there are 12 houses, there's 12 signs. So the planet, and when I say planet, I mean sun and moon as well, or the orb, we could call it, is the generality of that piece of your personality, but then the house is what it's like filtered through. So you have your moon in your 12th house, which isn't a really emotional house. So you feel things deeply. I have my moon in my 12th as well. I swear every person that has their moon in their 12th is a little psychic. Like you just get these like gut feelings, like you probably like know things and then you can't explain why you know them. You just know.
Yeah.
You just get these gut feelings and you're like, yep, I know. So that's kind of how it's filtered. I mean, does that make sense? Does that resonate with you?
I think I have I've always had a lot of premonitional dreams.
Yeah.
And just like things that I know mean something, but they might not right now, but it's just like it's in there.
Yeah.
And I've always like explained it to my mom because I feel like if I told people, they'd be like, that's not normal.
But
it makes sense.
But right. And with a Leo moon, I mean, you just have these like, yeah, they're big emotions, and Leos are known to be a little dramatic. So your emotions
Definitely,
can
yes.
be a little dramatic.
How much was that purse? 375? You mean 1,300? Maybe. Like I was just rounding down. That's it.
Right. What there's like actually like an equation for that. Like whenever your husband asks you, you just take like 25% off.
Yes.
Done.
Got it on sale. That's all about it.
I always say that. I got it on sale. Doesn't matter how much it is.
Can you believe those Target shoes were $20? But how many pairs did you buy? 6.
They were on sale though.
Oh yeah, definitely the dramatic piece. Again, as I've gotten older, I feel like I'm less dramatic. Same with the emotions. Like when I was young, they were like, out of whack, and now I feel like I control them a lot better.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, yeah, no, definitely Leo moon's a little drama, but it's a good thing. It's fine. It adds a lot of like, it adds some spice to your chart. And so the other thing you have to take into consideration is also elements when looking at signs. So like your sun is an air sign, so Gemini is an air sign, and then your moon is a fire sign, so Leo is fire, and then your rising is an earth. So you have this nice balance of element there. You are missing water from your chart. Well, you have a little bit of water in your chart in other places, but from your big three, those are your elements. Your personality is hot. Yeah.
I've been called sassy a lot.
Right.
Sassy is like the adjective people have. They're very sassy.
That's Gemini though in general. So Geminis are like very mutable. Oh, okay, so that's the other thing too. So your sun and your rising sign are both mutable signs, which means they're natural communicators. So usually when I see someone with a lot of mutable energy or a lot of placements in mutable signs, it means that they're naturally good at talking. Like they could just talk your ear off. And you're good at it. And I think it's a blessing to be a good communicator and a good talker. And you have a ton of placements in mutable signs. So there are 4 mutable signs: Gemini, Pisces, Sagittarius, and Virgo. And you have quite a few placements. Well, you have your rising in Virgo, you have a few placements in Gemini, and then you also have a few placements in Sagittarius too. So that being said, it just adds a lot of, mutability to your personality. It makes you an excellent communicator, and people like that, I see people with a lot of mutable are also very good in sales. So think like anything communication wise, so sales, public speaking, podcasts, you know what I mean, like anything with communication in general. So
do you think that's why I've always wanted to work on QVC?
Well, I can think of a few reasons why. You get free stuff.
No, we're down to 4. When I was younger, it was like QVC or the news. Like that's what I wanted to do. And I don't know why. It was just like always very weird.
And it totally makes sense. And something kind of cool about your chart too, is that your sun is in your 10th house. So the sun, when you were born, was at the very top of the sky. So whenever you see that, you see big personalities, you see your sun sign is very much a big part of your personality. And 10th house is all about like career and what you're interested in doing for a living. So the fact that your sun is there in Gemini means you're just destined to do something with communicating, speaking, like anything, like talk show, the drama. That's your Leo moon right there.
But I don't like to be in the drama. I just want to talk about it.
You like watching it.
Yeah. Like, but I don't ever like the drama, like in my life, like
no.
life, like,
well,
there is no drama, but it's like, I wouldn't want it to be, you know what I mean? I want it to be about what's going on with everyone else, like the housewives.
Right. Yes. Right. You could be like, what's the guy, I'm like blanking right now. He always like sits down with all the housewives.
Oh, yeah, the host that does all the
Yeah, what's his name? Why am I
Andy Cohen. Yeah.
Yes, that's you.
Perfect. Yes.
Done. Mediator.
Yes. Mediator.
Perfect.
Very good.
Yeah.
Mediator.
Mediator. Yeah, very good mediator. But because you're good at communicating both sides, so it's important.
Does it make sense too that I don't like attention, but I don't mind like doing things on camera or on like a podcast, like that kind of stuff doesn't bother me. But if I'm in public and people, I'm like the center of attention, I like wig out. Like I don't like that.
Yeah, that's probably just like your Virgo rising. So Virgos are also like perfectionists. So you probably also like to have a little bit more control over how you're viewed or what people see, or you know what I'm saying? So when you're in like in a setting where you don't have control over that, it might make you sweat a little because and there's nothing wrong with that. Just like your Virgo rising, you want to be seen, like you want to have like control over how you project yourself, if that makes sense, which is actually really nice. Because like, let's say you had like a fire rising or maybe another sort of like a Sagittarius rising, you wouldn't care. And then you'd be like all out there and it would be a little messy, right? So your Virgo really kind of scales both your sun and your Leo moon down. And it's like, okay, well, it's great that, you know, you have these wonderful aspects of your personality, but then your Virgo's like, hey, let me funnel that and perfect it. And that's probably why you feel like that, for sure. We like to have a little bit more control.
That's 100%. If I can't
than the average Gemini.
Yes, because I know other Geminis that aren't at all like me. Like they're very laissez-faire, and I'm like,
yeah. They're very much more like free-spirited, but those Geminis probably don't have a Virgo rising. So your rising sign is really important. I mean, it's what we call your chart ruler. And your chart in general is very what we would call mercurial, because you're ruled by Mercury, which when you think of Mercury, like back in just in the mythology of it, it's like he's the messenger, right? So anything with communication, mediation, I mean, it's just like you have a really strong chart for that. So that's like your blessing for sure.
Thank you, baby Jesus.
He gave you a good one.
You know what? It's my mom too, because I was supposed to be born in May, but I guess I wanted to incubate longer. And so they forced me out. I was evicted.
Were you? Yeah. Okay.
She always says if she wouldn't have had that done, she's like, you'd still be there. Like you just
forever. That was my son too. He wanted to live there forever. So those, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to look for some stubbornness in your chart. I mean, any earth signs really. I mean, Virgo, Taurus, you have your Venus in Taurus, which is lovely. So it's in its domicile there, meaning it's at home there, and it's in your 9th house. So it's lovely. It's like in a really nice placement, but at the same time, it's like slow moving energy. So, I mean, are you stubborn, would you say? Not at all. No. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, besides your Virgo rising,
strong-willed, I think, but stubborn, prideful.
No. Your husband is stubborn? We won't talk about him too much without him here to defend himself, but
what is his like generic like big three?
Oh yeah, so his big three, so he has a Taurus sun, he has a Virgo rising like you, which is real cute, and then he has a Sagittarius moon, which I'm very partial to, because my son has a Sagittarius moon, and it's like, just, I don't care like how serious your chart is, if you have a Sagittarius moon, you're a clown. Like, you're funny, you have jokes, like you're naturally funny. And yeah, I love that placement. I think it's especially because he does have a lot of seriousness in his chart. So with that Taurus sun, that's very serious energy. That's like hardworking energy. His Virgo rising, just like you.
He is super serious. Like when people, even the other day I had lunch with one of my friends and she's like, your husband, he's so serious, like they don't know how to take it. And she's like, is he always like that? And I laugh because it's not how he is at all. He just comes across like I come across RBF, but I'm not. I'm a very like kind-hearted, naturally,
and funny. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
With him, he comes across very stoic, very like, don't talk to me, don't, but he's not like that at all.
Right. Yeah. And again, that's that Virgo rising, and you guys both share that, which is really funny. And I think it's really sweet. So, yes, that's very true. And one thing interesting too, is it's really the only thing he has like on that side of his chart. And so, that's really where all his energy is funneled to. If you look at his chart, he has like a lot of planets in Sagittarius. He also has a lot of planets in Gemini, which we can talk about, which is interesting. He actually has 4 placements in Gemini, one of them being Venus. And when people ask me as far as like compatibility goes in synastry, they're like, well, what would be a good sign for me? And I always ask, okay, well, what are you attracted to? And if for a man who is attracted to a woman, I say you need to look at your Venus placement, because that's what his Venus represents, love and female energy. And so his Venus is in Gemini, and I'm like, wow, that's perfect, right? So so he's probably, you guys probably, I mean, just looking at your charts, have probably had a very natural, strong initial attraction to each other, for sure. Physical, I mean,
just like the easiest thing ever. It was like, it was never uncomfortable. There was never awkward silence. It was never one person more aggressive than the other. It was just like very equal and very easy.
Yeah. And I mean, you guys have a lot of similar placements in your charts too. With his Gemini, we call it a stellium. So anything with like a lot of energy in one place, it's called a stellium in astrology. And so you guys both have these really strong Gemini ties. And then just your placements of your chart. So when we look at, home life, we look at the 4th house. And he has his moon in his 4th house, just like all of your emotions, remember? So he probably had a strong emotional want for a family, or to have a family. He probably also has a strong relationship with his mother. Usually whenever I see a moon in the 4th house, it's like, whoa, he's like big time mama's boy. And then 5th house is children. And so like, that's how we use the houses, really. And then if I see placements in those, then I can kind of give you some guesses on certain questions and things like that. And that's really how it's used. But yeah, overall, like when I first saw his chart, I'm like, oh wow, he's got a lot of earth energy with his Taurus sun and his Virgo rising. But then once you get to know him with that Sagittarius moon, he's really funny. And he seems like a very relaxed guy, very easy to get along with.
But only around certain people. Like some people would know him and be like, I don't know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? But for me, it's like, I feel like he's like that only around a select few people. Probably my mom is a lot like that.
Yeah, that makes sense, because so when you look at the houses, there are some houses that we call hidden houses. And it means that you hide that part of yourself for only a select few. His moon, which is in Sagittarius, which is like the funny thing, like it's funny, his humor is in a hidden house. Your moon is in a hidden house too. So getting to know that piece of you also takes time. And the fact that you have your moons, what we call trine to one another. So let me back up. When you're looking at synastry in general, one of the biggest things that you look for when you are wanting harmony in a relationship is your moon, where your moons are, because that's where your emotional piece of your personality is. So you have your moon in Leo, which is trine his moon, which is like the best aspect you can ask for.
and his is in Sagittarius. So they're two fires. They're the two fire. You guys have fire moons, and they're both in a radical like harmony with each other. So, lot of attraction. You guys just get each other emotionally, which is really lovely. Yeah, I mean, overall, your compatibility is really lovely. It's really nice.
That's so cool. So interesting.
Yeah.
I never knew any of that, like when we dated. Like
yeah, yeah.
Birthday, but
It's just fun to find out. And then, you know, obviously there's always areas for opportunity in relationships too. So it's fun to look at that stuff as well. You know, and yeah, but overall, you guys are great together. It's really sweet, actually. So you have some really nice little special things, like your moon synastry is really nice. It's rare. It's rare-ish. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
He'll be like, oh, that's cool.
Typical Taurus Virgo answer right there. Okay.
All right, what are we having for dinner?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, what's for dinner? You got a snack for me? Man, those Taurus, they love food, man.
Like
they're
that.
simple.
Yeah.
They're simple.
So even killed, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And it's nice though, because it balances me. Like I feel like I can be very erratic sometimes.
Sure.
And I'm like, be more like Jack, be more like Jack.
You make yourself like a little bracelet or something. What would Jack do?
What would Jack do? What would Jesus do?
Right. Perfect.
What would Jack and Jesus do?
J and J do. What would J and J do? Perfect. Done. Right. No. But you know, I mean, being even killed is a wonderful trait, but sometimes that, you know, he probably just loves you because you add a little spice in his life, and that's, you know, I mean, you probably add a lot of color. I mean, Geminis are usually pretty colorful people, so you probably add a lot of color to his life.
And he never comments. Like my brother is like, Ashley, you're too loud. Ashley, be quiet. Ashley, you know, he's never like that. He's just like, I mean, I can scream or squeal about something. He doesn't even flinch. He's just like, okay, you know,
Yeah.
not like easy, you know. I'm never jarring him. It's funny because he's not like that at all. Like I've never even heard him yell. He's just very docile. So
I
didn't ever scared him away with my loud laugh or any of the other things that I've done, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's sweet. He's got a lot of earth in his chart. So he's got this, like, his Mars, and like that's his male energy is in Capricorn, which is just like really hardworking and really chill. And he's just a chill dude. He's good. I feel like we'd get along, or I would like him.
For sure. The only other thing I was gonna say is he's constantly the only thing he'll say to me is, Pony, be nice, because I'm like, no, listen. If I'm telling a story or talking about something, and he's just like, he's like my calming energy. So
totally, yeah,
totally makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, so Mercury is like how you communicate. So he has his Mercury in Aries, and you have yours in Cancer, which is like they're total opposite. So like how you communicate and how he communicates are like totally different. He's probably way more straight to the point.
Yeah.
And then you like, have a lot more emotion in your in the way you communicate. Yeah.
He's no nonsense. He doesn't care if he offends you. This is what it is, and we're moving on. I'm like, you know,
I need to dissect this.
I'm like, okay, Pony, be nice. Like, just ease into it. Don't be like, no, this is what it is. So we're opposite in that way. Yeah.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense because you're the way you communicate is very, very different. So but that being said, you just have a lot of mutual understanding in the way you perceive each other's emotions. So even though, you know, you probably have like a lot of understandings that don't even need to be spoken about. Does that make sense? Like you just get each other. So that's a really nice thing to have. But yeah, you guys have a lot of similarity and then a lot of differences. So it's just like really fun to look at.
Yeah.
You guys are funny.
That's so cool. He was so jealous he couldn't be here to
I wish he was. Yeah,
The
next
background
time.
with his narratives. Yeah. The
I know, I'm
best
like, he's
ones,
not here to defend himself.
true, and make the facial expressions he's always making. He's like won't say anything, but then his face like says it all. That's the best part.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh.
Oh, like you charting with people. Is that something you do like on the side? If people are ever
Yeah.
interested in doing that?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I usually do a lot more written charts, but I just started doing live readings, kind of like what we're doing right now. They're a little bit more structured. I usually have like a lot of notes, and then if you have specific questions, I can take them and then we can talk about them. But I have really scaled back because it's different with you and I, because like I know you and I'm more comfortable with you, but it takes a lot of energy to talk to someone. And so I've really scaled back a lot on my chart readings as far as like in person, but written, yes, I do them. So I have two types of written chart readings. I do birth chart readings. So that really encompasses like your sun, your moon, your rising, and then all the planets. So it goes over like every single planet and all the houses that they're in. Talks about like strengths, opportunities. We'll go over this thing called like your north node of destiny. So that's like more like personal work, like destiny as far as like your personal journey. And then as far as the synastry readings go, or relationship readings go, I personally use synastry. Now, there's a couple ways that you can do relationship readings. You can either do synastry or composite. So synastry, what synastry does is it takes all of the planets in both of your charts and then it compares them. So I look at angles. And if there's harmonious angles or if there are more like difficult angles, it just gives me an idea of things that you guys are the strengths that you have, and then areas of opportunity to work on. And then I also do I touch on some things for your relationship reading as far as if you have specific questions like children or I try not to do too many of like future fortune telling stuff. It's more of like just a general idea of things that you can work on and things that because that just gets a little I don't, and everybody does things differently, but as far as like looking ahead, I try not to do it too much because I don't want to psych you out.
Right.
And because I know sometimes that like looking at this stuff can be stressful for some people. So I really just like to look at it as like a general overview, and maybe some like fun things about your charts, then fun things that you share. The other type I mentioned is composite. And what that does is it's literally like a chart of your, like, it takes the midpoint between each of your planets and then casts a birth chart. So it's just different.
Yeah.
But I like synastry more. I think it gives you more. I also try not to do people who just got into a relationship, like give it a year, give it 6 months, give it some time, because it might not make sense if you like, let's say you start dating someone a few months in and you want one, I don't want people to like read into it, like let it happen naturally. And then if you're together in a year or so or 6 months, then hit me up,
Great. So is that something you do on like your website?
Yeah. So if you go to simplysunsigns.com and then you just go to charts up at the top, it lists everything there. And you can just book it with me if you're interested in a live one. You can email me directly, but if you're into having something written, you can just buy it directly online and then I'll send it to you in a PDF.
That's so cool. And then how did you go from just doing the blog to the charting and now to the Loungewear line?
Yeah, it's quite the journey. So it's really funny. It's been, a journey, and I always feel weird about monetizing it. But, here's here's what I always say: if you're good at something, don't do it for free. So, I started writing about it, and I was getting tons and tons of hits. And I actually work for a publishing company, which is funny. And we have a paywall on our, on all of our content. And so what I did is I was like, well, this is so smart. And so I did put a paywall up for my articles, but it's $9.99 for the year, and you can read all 400 articles on there. And then how it went from there is I started doing chart readings, and like I was saying, it just got really, it's exhausting. And not like in a bad way. It's just like, when you're talking to people and you're talking about sometimes really emotional things or personal things, I take hours to prep for my readings. So I also have a full-time,
like you feel
it's emotional. Yeah. And it's like, and when you're an empath, or when you have an empathetic personality, it just kind of takes a lot out of you. And so I was like, okay, well, I can only do this so many times a day. I also have a full-time job and a 2-year-old, right? So I can't do readings when he's home, because he's like a barnacle, right? He's like, on me all the time. Like this would never be happening if he was here right now. Never. He'd like knock that partition down. He'd be like tapping on the things. He'd be grabbing stuff. I mean, it would never happen. So, so I was like, okay, well, one thing that I love is, I love clothing, and I've always loved astrology. And so I always looked around and shopped around for anything astrology, and like, no shade, but I never found anything that wasn't like really tacky. And I'm like, that's tacky, that's too much, right? So I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna make my own. My developer was also pushing me to, she's like, I can get this store set up, it'll be really nice, I think it would really go with your whole platform. And I said, okay. So so we went for it, and it's been so much fun.
That's awesome.
It's been so much fun. So I sell like sweatshirts like this. I've sent you some things. I have like crop tees, crop hoodies, joggers. Some hats.
Favorite. I wear them all the time.
Yeah, I love them too. They're great. But it's just another way to have fun with the platform. And there's something about with astrology is like nothing is tangible. It's always spoken or written. So it's really nice to have something tangible to add to your brand. And so that for me was like a really fun piece that I wanted to do. I actually sold clothes like 5 years ago, and they just tanked. So I sold like tanks and stuff. No, they were just like tank tops, like printed screen print, like tank tops, and they just absolutely tanked. And I was like really hesitant to do this, but I think I just had a better vision at this time in my life. And I was like, yeah, I think this is what I want to do.
It's all timing. I feel like you can literally do something at one time and the same thing another time, and 2 totally different results. It's crazy.
Yeah, totally. Which is just another thing, just don't give up. Right. And, I'm still working on it, but at the end of the day, it's just something that I love, and it's just like a passion project. So yeah, it's fun.
Isn't that so cool that you start out with something as your passion, so cliche, and then it just slowly evolves into being like your full-time?
Yeah, I feel like that's been happening a lot for people lately, especially with all this time at home. I've even had some, birth chart readings that I've done where people have specifically asked, should I follow my dreams and do what I love? And I looking at their chart, it's so funny because I always ask, well, what do you do now? And what's your passion? And when you're looking at your creativity and your passion, you always look at your 5th house. And so I look at that. I also look at your North Node again, like, right, your destiny and things like that. And it's so funny because every time without fail, they match up. And I'm like, well, look at your chart. All of these things are telling you that you're heading in the right direction. So just keep doing it, And so the problem with astrology is it's always right. It really is. It's always right. It's really fun. I try to, gauge people's seriousness when we go into a reading, and yeah, and a birth chart makes a great gift too if you're ever looking
Yeah, that's
for,
an idea. Especially
yeah,
for people like that don't know a lot about it. Like I only like knew the basics of it, you know?
right, right. Yeah, no, I feel like my readings, just to be completely transparent, are not for people who are I would say really, really far down their path in their like astrological learning. I would say my readings are perfect for someone like you who maybe just knows their sun sign and wants to know more.
Mhm.
But yeah, my jam though, or like maybe my niche is relationships. Like I could talk about relationships and synastry like all day long. I feel like that's what I just love looking at that stuff, because I find it really fascinating. So
Did you look up your husband's before you were like, I do? Or you like, hold on a second?
yeah, I mean, so it's funny, him and I, we don't have well, so like you're the most favorable aspect in a relationship chart is your trine, right? Because it's like the most harmonious. It's easy, right? But what I've really been noticing a lot lately, especially with our generation and who people are choosing to partner with, or their life partner with, is I've seen a lot more conjunctions, which means like same sign, or they'll have a lot of similar placements in their chart. And I've also seen a lot more even squares, which is the hardest one. And I feel like that has to come from a place of our generation and looking at a partnership and thinking like, well, yeah, I want it to be easy, but I also want this person to challenge me. And I want this person to show me a mirror of myself and show me what I need to work on. I want my partner to make me a better person, right? So, also, I want my partner to be my equal. And with everything going on right now, I mean, women are still having to make leaps and bounds to, get the same pay as men, and right. And in relationships, and we're trying to find this balancing act of being a mom and working and all of that. But at the end of the day, we want our partners to be our equal, no matter what.
Totally.
So I feel Yeah, so I feel like I see those a lot more because yeah, we're just okay with having uh those aspects in our relationship. And so it's fun to see that. And that's why when people ask me, well, I've heard that this sign and this sign don't get along, I'm like, don't listen to that. That's not true.
This is very,
Any sign,
yeah.
right, right. Any sign can get along. It's just knowing that you have either squares or conjunctions or whatever the aspect is, and then understanding that energy and then what to do with that energy and then how to use that in your relationship, right? So there's no bad relationship. I mean, I would say yes, maybe there's some more challenging ones, but those challenges can make you stronger or closer, so
Were there
yeah.
people that came to you during the pandemic and were like, listen, I've been spending a lot of time with my spouse or partner and I want to murder them. So am I like, on to something
I've
here?
never been busier.
It's crazy.
Oh yeah. I've never been busier. Yes, I think that this pandemic has it's either like a make or break for relationships.
Made you realize like, oh my gosh, I made a huge mistake, or oh wow, we really made the right decision.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I won't name names. I had a client, that yeah, her and her husband, they were newlywed, and then boom, pandemic. And and he left, right? And she was like, is he gonna come back? What do I need to do? What's going on? And it's so funny, like, just yeah, it's been a challenging year. But then I have other people where it's been great for their relationship because they never really got to spend any time together beforehand. So I've seen both. I think it seems to be one or the other,
That's
but
crazy.
it's been,
Where
yeah.
are you gonna go?
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing about astrology that people like to use astrology for, is they like to use it in uncertain times because it gives you, some sort of security or maybe sense of understanding of why things are happening or what's going on in the world. And that's really why over the past year, I never did transits, which is like what's going on right now in the sky or like what's going on. But the astrology of the past few years has been so fascinating, and how it has really reflected kind of what's going on just globally. It's so literal that I was like, I need to start paying attention and I need to add this into my practice. And so on my Instagram, you can see like today, Mercury moved into Pisces, right? So I posted about that. What does that mean? And what's that energy like, right? And so that has been a huge change for me in my practice. And I'm still learning about transits and like how to interpret those. But people have been loving those right now because of everything that's been going on. And yeah, it's just kind of the perfect storm of our generation really supporting astrology, and then also just a time of uncertainty. People wanted answers, like people wanted to kind of use astrology to kind of figure out why they're feeling certain ways. I also had a client over the pandemic who was talking about possibly divorcing her husband, and and after talking to her for a while, I told her, well, you guys, they have beautiful synastry. Like they just have this beautiful, and I'm like, I tried to find something wrong and I couldn't. And then she's like, I just want to say thank you because you just reminded me like why I married him, and I need to start focusing on those positive things.
Over
And
here
they're
saving
still
marriages.
saving them, but I keep it real. Don't get me twisted. I'm not trying to break people up either, but that's completely, this is what I do. I look at it from an unbiased perspective and I just say, okay, this is what I see and this is what I don't see. And however they interpret that, it's like I'm the messenger. And so I'm just literally, without bias, I look at a chart and I tell them exactly what I see. Yeah. And then however they want to take that. But she was trying to find, she was like, there's got to be something negative. I'm like, I don't see anything on here that you should really be massively concerned about. I think you're just a newlywed and it's a tough time, And so, yeah. And so a lot of astrologers take like counseling courses and stuff like that. I have not, but I have thought about it.
You could just be a marriage counselor.
It's funny because I almost went to school to become a divorce lawyer. So
true, you'd be good at either one.
I could do either. Whatever you need me to do.
Bring him up, Judge. So. I'm ready. Your
Honor.
I've got a tip for you.
I would love to be called Your Honor.
Yeah.
I mean, I could get down with that, but yeah, it just didn't happen.
It's never too late, Desiree.
You're right. You're totally right. That's another thing too. I get a lot of questions on or I've had a lot of people right now that have lost their jobs and will be like, hey, where do I go now? What do I do now? And so that's a fun thing to look at too, if you're looking to kind of gain some clarity on what you're naturally gifted at. And I can see that in a chart, right? So I was just talking about how you're good at communicating, and so those are your gifts.
QVC, right?
I would love to see you on QVC. I feel like, so it's so funny. My mom, I sent her the video of the review you did, and my mom bought 3 things that she's like, I don't listen to anyone, but man, she just sells those clothes, talking about clothes film butter and this and that. She's like, I want some butter.
That's so cute.
So her ass like went to Walmart. She got like this sweatsuit you sold. You were like selling her. I'm
Oh, that's
like,
so
wow.
cute. So cute. I love it.
Actually, I bought a few things that because you're just good at, you just sell it. You sell it.
I really think
Sell it.
part
I
of
think
it is just things that you genuinely love. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
has to be something you believe in. Otherwise, I don't know. I think it's stupid.
So it's easy for you to sell the things that
Right.
you actually really like. Yeah.
I genuinely love it. Yeah. And then there are things
Right.
where I'm like, I'm returning that. I'm not even going to talk about it because I don't like it. That's why I try to do like the due diligence part where like wear it, wash it, use it, whatever, because there's no point in me talking about it if I don't genuinely like it. And I know that there's some
Right.
people on there that are, just like, yeah, I love it. It's just, the
Well, that's why
fine.
you put hashtag ad on there. You're like, this is an ad, right?
Yeah.
You just let people know that you're getting
Yeah.
paid. But yeah, I mean,
But yeah, I mean QVC, any of that stuff, like I joke, but seriously, like that I used to watch that incessively when I was young. And I just loved it. I probably would be the youngest person that works in that whole entire company, but
maybe you could revamp QVC though. It's like you're just bringing it back.
yeah.
I mean, essentially that is what you're doing though, in a different form with the way that you sell clothing. It's just a little bit more of a modern version, and it's not live
True.
either.
So if I
So
met
how would you feel about it being live? Would you be sweating?
a little bit, yeah, I probably have to take a Xanax.
Just, whoop, whoop.
Does anyone
Yeah,
have their
right.
Xanax and wine ready? I've heard that's quite a combo.
Yeah. By the end, you're like passed out on the floor. Perfect.
Did we sell out or no? Did I hit my boat?
Done. Oh my gosh. I actually remember Juliana Rancic. Do you know who that? She was like on, or maybe she's still on TV. She was on QVC and she had like a clothing line. Like I could still see you doing that.
Somebody get me a deal. Speaking of deals, I remember reading about this all the time, and I wanted to ask you how true it is about
Okay.
Mars. I think it's Mars being in retrograde. People say that all the time, and I'm like, I need to ask Desiree about that. Is that really true, or is that just a load?
Mercury.
Oh, what did I say?
You were close though.
Mercury. Yeah, it was an M.
Yeah, that one. Right. So, yes. So here's the deal. All of the planets, obviously not the moon and the sun, but all the planets go into retrograde. Okay. But Mercury is talked about the most because I think it is collectively felt the most, right? Okay. And so yes, Mercury goes into retrograde about 3 times a year.
Okay.
And it's, so if you really think about it, Mercury, how many retrogrades you've been through in your life is like hundreds, right? So, but we love to talk about it. And the retrograde lasts about 3 weeks long. So it's enough to do some damage. And so what happens is the actual planet doesn't actually reverse, but when we're looking at it in the sky, it does look like it's reversing, but it's only because of where we are on the axis to it. So, but because of that, yes, it can. So Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo, right? Which are 2 things that are, all about you. And so something fascinating is it rules communication, it rules technology, it rules the way you think or the way your thought process goes. So when it's in reverse, things get a little jumbled up, right? So your computer crashes, you get into car wrecks. So Mercury is also transportation. That's why they say don't travel that time. If you have to travel during that time, just make sure like you're checking everything 5 times over, right? I traveled on a Mercury retrograde. This is a perfect example. We went down to Orlando, actually, to Animal Kingdom, and I had my checklist. That was good. I checked everything like 3 times, and we get to the airport, and I'm like, "Where's the stroller?" Yeah, husband just left the stroller, and then so like it's like no matter what you do, it just gets you, right? Another thing is signing contracts, right? Anything like written or anything. It's not a good time to start anything new, but it is good for something. So we always like to like blame Mercury on everything, but like one thing that it's good is anything with like a prefix of re. So reviewing, revisiting, renewing. It's good to reconnect with people during that time. That's why X's pop up around that time. So sometimes you'll see like an X pop up. Yeah, right. So I would say, you know, during that time is not the right time to be connecting with old flames. Like let that DM sit there until Mercury goes direct, and then you'll have a clear head on how to either A, not respond, or to respond, right? Right. Right. So but it's funny. So my husband and I reconnected during a Venus retrograde, which is Venus rules love and everything. And, you know, we've known each other since we were kids. And it's funny because when Venus is retrograding is when we reconnected. So so it's not always a bad thing, but it can be. If you were born when it was in retrograde, usually Mercury retrogrades don't affect you as much.
Got it.
So that's nice to know. I just looked at yours. You were not. So Mercury was direct when you were born. So same with your husband. It was not in retrograde. So yeah. So Mercury retrograde might mess with you a little bit. Yeah. But I mean, I wouldn't make it like it's not like anxiety. It shouldn't be like an anxiety ridden time. It's just something to be like conscientious of. So if something weird happens, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I always see people post and talk about it, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. I like to back up. So I'll back up like my phone. I'll make sure everything on my computer desktop is either backed up, saved, things like that. I'm extra cautious when I'm driving at that time. People act real wild. There's more accidents during that time typically. Same thing with full moons, right? Yeah. I mean, so there's more calls, and this is a statistical fact, is that there are more calls into ER on a full moon than any other night. The energy is just high. So
it's weird, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Let me go back inside.
What are you gonna turn into? You're gonna turn into a werewolf? I mean,
no, just to avoid anything bad from happening.
Yeah, you just go hop back inside. Yeah, that works. Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
So many good pieces of information you gave me. Now I feel like I can tell Jack it all makes sense.
My poor husband can't get away from it. We just went down to the Keys for vacation, and he's trying to figure out what the best day to go fishing on. And the charter was like, oh, the fish always bite best on a full moon. And my husband's like, I just can't get away from this. Yeah. I can't get away from it. I'm like, because it's true.
Yes. That's so cool. Do you like before you guys make decisions, or are you always like, let me check the chart?
I do for vacation, but like little stuff, I mean, that would be exhausting. But for vacation, I really do try to not book it during a retrograde. You know, but at the same time, no, I mean, I got to live my life. I got to do what I got to do. I did tell my realtor when we bought our house, I was like, you better get that. We better close before Mercury retrograde, because I'm not trying to sign off on like the biggest purchase of my life under a retrograde. So
that's so funny.
So yeah, I will. My realtor was like, okay.
This girl's crazy.
Oh yeah. Well, I was paying her. So she was like, okay.
Shake your head.
Man, they make commission. Yeah. She's like, okay, we'll get it done. So yeah, I mean, I'll use it for like the big stuff, but for little things, you know, I really try not to make it control my life. So, and that's the beauty of astrology, is you can use it as much as you want or as little as you want. You can take it as seriously as you want, or you can take it with a grain of salt. Some people just think it's like fun, and then other people, you know, live and breathe by it. Yep. And you there's a range, there's a spectrum. So, you know, you use it however you want.
I love it. Thank you so much.
All right, you guys, that is going to wrap up this podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I had so much fun filming this. I will definitely leave that coupon code down below. So if you decide to get any of that merchandise, you can get that. Please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit that post notification bell so you guys can be notified every time I upload new videos. And I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.